Good morning, everyone. We have a big docket this morning. This is HWI Sub 3. What we don't get done this morning, we will be doing this evening at 6 o'clock. So we're going to try to get through all the bills. I'm going to limit speaking to of people pros against to a minute. And if you can just limit it to yes, I like it or don't like it, we'd appreciate that. We're going to take roll. And we have a quorum, so we can continue on. One housekeeping measure I'm going to do is House Bill 1342, Delegate Murphy's bill at her request. She's requested we strike it from the docket. All right, cast your vote on that, please. All right, that bill has been stricken from our docket. We're going to take, there's a few bills that may, if they get passed out of here, have to go to appropriations. So we may take things a little bit out of order this morning because those will be heard in full committee at 10 o'clock this morning, so they have time to get upstairs. So anybody who isn't prepared for it going to appropriations this morning, oh well. We're gonna move it on up there. Okay. Our first bill we're going to hear this morning was Delegate Subramanian's bill, because he has to get to another. I don't see him. So Delegate Fowler, come on up.
All right. Madam Chair, I have a couple of bills here. First up will be House Bill 360. And Madam Chair, House Bill, this is a substitute, which...
Do you want to tell us what the difference is in the substitute, Delegate Fowler?
Yes, ma'am. Well, the substitute is a lot better than the original.
I heard that. Thank you. So do you want to go ahead and tell us what the difference is, or tell us what the sub does?
It's really a pretty significant makeover of the original bill, and it just involves more stakeholders, involved in it. And basically what we're going to try to do is just to move this idea forward over time. And if you want, I can present my talking points, and you will.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move the substitute.
Mm-hmm. Move sub.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, Delegate Orr.
Is there someone phone a friend and tell us now what this does?
Yes, I am ready to do that right now, Delegate Orr. And Michelle Sadlin is also here to provide some testimony. All right, very good. All right, Madam Chair, all right, well, okay, House Bill 360, the substitute you have in front of you is language that's identical to Senator Dunavant's introduced bill in the Senate, passed out of subcommittee on unanimous vote. The substitute is somewhat different from the original introduced bill. It reflects the edits of stakeholders, including the Medical Society of Virginia, the health plans in McKesson. The goal of the legislation has always been, Madam Chairman, to ensure prescribers and patients have access to more information at the point of prescribing, so they can better understand the requirements for A, prior authorization, B, real-time cost data for a covered prescription drug, and cost-sharing information, including deductibles. The amendment also requires the Board of Insurance to convene a work group to make recommendations regarding the implementation of electronic prior authorization. Requires various representatives from the health plans, medical society, and hospital associations participate. The substitute also requires that the Board of Insurance work group, the bill will need to be reenacted in 2023. With the substitute, I'm not aware of further opposition and ask that you support the bill. And Madam Chairman, I have Michelle Saddle in here that can also provide some information to the subcommittee if you so desire.
Madam Chairman? Yeah, could Michelle come forward and kind of give us a side-by-side nuts and bolts, what this is different from the original? And we've got a couple other PBM measures this morning, how this is different from those at broad perspective.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Michelle Satterlin on behalf of McKesson. Delegate Fowler kindly carried this legislation for us. The original bill that you had was more specific to actually mandating that the PBMs or the health carriers provide a patient's benefit information at the request of the provider or the patient. The substitute that you have in front of you is a little more expansive. We worked closely with Delegate Fowler and Senator Donovan to make sure that it was more appropriate for providers. So there is a prior authorization section, and that has been added in the bill on lines 88 of the substitute, or it starts at line 15 of the substitute. This says that by July 1, 2025, physicians and carriers must work together to ensure that there is an availability of prior authorizations on the physicians or the healthcare provider, there may be nurses as well, on their EMR, their electronic medical record, to allow for the querying and the response of prior authorization information on the EMR. Additionally, there is that communication continues through lines 78 through 93. That is basically new language. The language on lines 114 through 128 is similar to what was originally introduced, but it removes the requirement of the mandate for the PBMs and the health insurers, and allows the last section, the Bureau of Insurance, to look at this issue, convene a work group, and then put together recommendations. Those are the biggest differences.
Anyone on the committee have any questions? Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak for the bill? Anyone? Oh.
Madam Chair, since I'm here, I'll say McKesson does support it. It is a positive step forward. It's definitely not the original bill, but it is a positive step forward that keeps the conversation going and is pro-patient.
Okay. Mr. Gray.
Madam Chairman, Doug Gray on behalf of the Virginia Association of Health Plans. The Association of Health Plans, the hospitals and physicians signed off on the substitute on the Senate side. It sets a 5-year goal, so it's, 3-year goal, 2025 to achieve these things. And so we're trying to figure out where we are and then get ourselves on a path to adopting this new technology. It's real-time benefit tools, it's electronic prior authorization, and it's electronic prescribing. It's all three of those things.
Good morning, Scott Johnson for the Medical Society, and I would just say ditto to what Mr. Gray said.
Madam Chairman, members of the committee, Brent Rawlings, Virginia Hospital and Healthcare Association. Nothing further to add. This will take some time to figure out. We'll work on it together and get there, just like we did with electronic prescribing. Thank you.
Is there anyone to speak against the bill? I have Delegate Hayes. Do you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think most of my questions, it sounds like, have been addressed as others have come up. I was a little confused there exactly what was actually happening with the bill and the substitute. Perhaps someone could answer one question, Madam Chair.
Delegate Hayes?
I'm not sure who to direct it to, but the convening of the work group and those findings, that's to happen by when?
Yes, Madam Chair. Delegate Hayes, the work group will convene theoretically this summer. Its report must come out by November 1, 2022, so this year. And then theoretically there is we'll come back with legislation, hopefully, that takes the recommendations of the work group and can continue working on this issue.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chairman, I move to recommend reporting as substitute.
All right. All those in favor of reporting the substitute, say aye. Oh, no, I guess we have to vote, don't we?
To the board.
This is a real vote. To report. As substitute. Delegate Fowler, House Bill 360 reports out on a 5-0 vote.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We have one more bill that Delegate
right.
Orrock has informed me that he just can't wait to hear about,
All right,
and that's House Bill 1307, was dealing with a kratom, and again, I think this bill, is probably, not going to go very far, but that being said, we do have some folks here to provide some testimony that I think will edify the committee, and so I want to see if they're, snuck up behind me.
Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman, members of the committee, Matt Benke with the American Kratom Association. I appreciate you all hearing this bill and listening to us when we've come by and talked to you about the issue. We know we have a lot of education still to do on this issue, and we sincerely appreciate the time of Chairman Orrock in this bill. We are asking that you all carry this bill over to the next year. And with me, I do have Mac Hadow with the American Kratom Association just to talk briefly about the intent of the bill, which we think is a very, very good intent.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the subcommittee. Thank you for this opportunity to speak briefly with you this morning about HB 1307. My name is Mac Hadow. I'm the Senior Fellow on Public Policy with the American Kratom Association. I spend a lot of my time traveling around the country talking about kratom, but I live in Prince William County, and as I was leaving last night, my wife asked me, "Where are you headed to this week?" And I said, "Richmond." And she said, "Well, when you get home, take the garbage out." So I'll do that this evening, as my duty requires. Our mission at the American Kratom Association is to represent consumers of this product and to protect the rights of every American to consume kratom legally and safely to better manage their overall health and wellness. As you may know, in its natural form, kratom is a food product or dietary ingredient containing parts of the leaf of the plant Metrogenium speciosa, or an extract of it. It is manufactured as a powder, capsule, tablet, beverage, or other edible form, and is often sold as an herbal supplement. One of the largest kratom distributors in the nation is based right here in Virginia. Kratom is consumed for the purpose of providing an energy boost similar to a cup of coffee in the morning and increased focus. It provides relief at higher doses of pain associated with various ailments. It gives relief for some from anxiety and symptoms of depression, and it is used by most people for general health and well-being. Our Virginia legislative team has been speaking with you and your colleagues about kratom and the need for consumer protections to ensure that it is prepared, distributed, and sold in its natural form, and that additives that create synthetic forms of kratom are prohibited and penalized. When you hear
can you wrap
reports...
it up soon?
Yes, ma'am.
Please,
Thank you.
you.
We're asking that HB 1307 be carried over to the 2023 session to give us time to share detailed information and to hear and address the concerns that you and your colleagues may have. We thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman.
Delegate Orrock.
Just speaking to the bill, and I thank the folks for their coming by and telling me about something I never knew before. As a retired teacher, I always enjoy learning. I truly do. My concern with the legislation, and this is something just to share as a measure maybe going forward for the coming year for consideration, I don't know of any other legal product that FDA has not, said there's anything wrong, we're not going to regulate, that we as Virginia have said we're going to start regulating this. My concern, once we start down that road, then everything can come before us, and we're not set up with the scientific knowledge and research to monitor any of these type products. To one of the advocates when they came by, I said, we're setting the precedent. If we start doing this, we start regulating powdered sugar, because it's not regulated by FDA that I'm aware of, and so we're start heading down that road. I understand the legitimate concerns that folks are experiencing in the retail sector on the product. It's being tainted and adulterated, and folks are being harmed by that. But my only comment, just in furtherance, Madam Chairman, be, this is something, if it's going to be done, it needs to be done at FDA level, so the standards are national, not piecemeal, state by state. So with that, Madam Chairman, I have a motion.
Delegate Orr.
I move to carry over House Bill 1307.
All right, all those in favor of carrying this over till whenever, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. This bill 1307 be carried
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
over.
Members of the committee. Thank you.
Delegate Subramanian.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. The bill is HB 478. So this is a bill, you've probably seen this in various forms, either in the news or at the federal level, but some states are starting to do this as well. And the bill essentially would lower prescription drug prices by allowing the cross-referencing of prescription drug prices to other countries. In this bill, we're doing it with Canada. And what's targeted is 250 prescription drugs, the highest total annual expenditure. There's a penalty for non-compliance. And the idea here is that in the United States, we spend probably 2 to 3 times more on prescription drugs than other countries. And this would try to at least start to get us more in line with other countries. So I know it's a radical idea, but I've got a couple folks here who are interested in answering questions about it as well and testifying to it. I hope they keep their comments brief, though. But one thing I'll say is that both the Biden and Trump administration have seriously considered this in various forms, and so it's not as radical as it looks. So I appreciate your time and here to answer questions. Thank you.
Did you have a substitute or any amendments?
Oh, yes, I'd like to move the substitute. Thank you.
All right. Do I have a motion to accept the substitute?
Madam Chairman, before we do that, I'm going to just a very quick look that this one is very different from the original bill. It's not drawn to the same code section. It inserts a lot of definitional references that are not in the original legislation. And all due respect to the patron, I would question the germaneness of this and ask the chair to rule on that.
All right. Delegate Subramanian, hearing voices from on high. Your substitute is not germane to the original bill. So the original is actually before us then.
Okay. Well, in that case, I think the substitute is kind of what I'm trying to push, so I'm happy to entertain motions from the committee in that case.
So, Madam Chairman, towards that end, I would, it's a very legitimate issue, and conceptually, I'm with you. I know several states have enacted at their level to try and do this. However, none of them have gotten permission from the federal government to allow them to have the waivers to do so, is my understanding. So if it's amenable to the patron, we'll carry this over, but with your concurrence in helping me to draft, we'll send this to the Joint Commission on Health Care for them to look at the matter over the coming year. Rather than have us study it, we'll let the Joint Commission look at it if you're amenable with that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And we still could hear folks that are in the virtual room if they wanted to be heard on the matter, understanding kind of where this is going.
That would be great. Thank you.
All right. Heather, do you want to?
Yes, Madam Chair. I have one speaker against and then one, I think, to answer questions. The speaker is Kelly Memphis.
Okay. Kelly, would you like to speak?
Hi. Yes, hello. Good morning, Madam Chair. My name is Kelly Memphis, as you probably know from my caption. I'm with the Healthcare Distribution Alliance. I'll try to be very brief since this seems that it's going in a certain direction, but I did want to share that the Healthcare Distribution Alliance is opposed to implementing a drug importation program. We are the National Trade Association who represents the healthcare wholesale distributors across the nation. 92% of pharmaceuticals go through our members. And we do believe that an international drug importation program would conflict with federal standards for protecting the supply chain, including through the Drug Supply Chain Act We do believe it would ultimately increase the likelihood of contaminated and counterfeit medications, which would put Virginia patients at risk. So due to these safety and compliance concerns, we do oppose this bill respectfully. And I have submitted a longer letter sharing more details if people would like to review that or have further questions for me. So thank you for the chance to share our views.
Thank you, Ms. Memphis.
Madam Chairman, I'd move carry over House Bill 478.
All those in favor of carrying the bill over, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that's with sending it,
Send a letter.
okay, we'll work with a letter. And no one is opposed. Delegate Subramanian, your bill goes on.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Next, we have Delegate Willett.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Good morning.
Yes, got HB 388, State Facilities Video Visitation before you. I think a lot of us saw during the pandemic so many families that were separated from their loved ones who were in medical facilities where in-person visitation was prohibited because of COVID protocols. And even when in-person visits were allowed, talking about state facilities now, a lot of families had to travel great distances and stay away from home to be able to get in a position to see loved ones. These physical separations have included our state mental health hospitals, as I learned from NAMI, and in particular, Carl and Jane Polzer. These are two Fairfax County residents who shared with me a story. They had a family member in our Western State mental health facility in Stanton in early 2020. Soon after their loved one was in the facility, COVID protocols were put in place, so they were not able to actually visit in person. The only way they could communicate was by telephone. Carl Polzer and Jane approached the hospital about setting up video access using iPads, or in this case, Kindles, to communicate. The hospital accommodated that. And the great part about this is that other hospitals across the state adopted the same approach, using the technology, and it worked quite well. What this bill would do is continue that program. The hospitals are interested in doing this. There's a small appropriation in the second year to fund this so they can keep doing the communication. It really has become a critical link for families, again, so folks don't have to travel across the state. And again, when these protocols are in place, this enables the connection with family, particularly for the youth. We'd have a facility for youth in Virginia, a mental health facility. This would enable constant communication as part of their care plan with those individuals. And Madam Chairman, I've got Carl Polzer joining us today. Love to have him tell you his story briefly and answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
All right, well, I have a question first. And is someone here from the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services? All right, so let me go ahead and hear the testimony. Heather, do you want to let Mr. Polzer in the room?
Yes, Madam Chair. Go ahead, Carl Polzer.
Can you hear me okay?
Now we can, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you all so much. And special thanks to Delegate Willett. And he stole my thunder. He summarized very well about 2/3 of what I was going to say, and I appreciate that. And all we're trying to do here is make available to people with mental health issues, serious mental health issues, what we're doing right now, communicating by Zoom with family members. It took almost 2 years to get this started in the state system. Well, now it's, in the regular economy, it took a few weeks or months. So I'll tell you the story. He told it pretty well. At the beginning of the COVID era, our son actually was sent to Western State in Stanton from Northern Virginia. Soon after his arrival, in-person visitation was suspended for more than a year due to the pandemic. At first, we were able to keep in touch with him through a telephone that patients can use in the common area on each ward. We called 2 or 3 times a week and usually got through. But early in May, we called him many times. We were told he couldn't come to the phone. No explanation. Finally, after several days, the hospital staff brought him to a phone, and he couldn't speak hardly. His words were slurred. I had to speak to a staff member and was told that due to an adverse drug reaction, he was partially paralyzed. He's been trying to tell me that he had to wear an adult diaper. Fortunately for everybody, over the next week, this medical crisis abated. But during that time, we couldn't communicate with him in person. We couldn't talk to him. We couldn't see him. We felt powerless. And I wondered what it felt like for him. Now, this happened just when Zoom was becoming the way to do things. And I asked the hospital ombudsman and other staff, could we do video? And they all suggested talking to the director, Dr. Smith. And to my pleasant surprise, she said yes, but it took 6 months to set it up. We went through a lot of process, worked very closely with the hospital staff, 2 teams of IT people, one didn't make it through. And there was some institutional resistance, which there continued to be as I went
Mr.
through this.
Polzer, I'm going to need you to wrap up, okay?
Okay. I'm sorry I've taken so long, but I just want to emphasize some of the benefits of this.
We appreciate you sharing your story with us and giving us an understanding of what's going on in the institution, so thank you.
All right, well, you want me to wrap up right now, or do I get another minute?
Nope, you used your minute up, sir. I gave you
Oh,
already 2.
I didn't know if it was just a minute. I thought I had 5 minutes. Well, this is a good thing, and we appreciate you all taking a look at it. I did one last thing. I did a survey of all the hospitals 3 weeks ago. It's in the testimony that you can see on page 6, and includes comments from staff about the value of this program. Thanks very much.
Thank you, sir. And we have one more speaker,
Yes, Kathy Harkey.
Ms. Harkey.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Kathy Harkey, Executive Director of NAMI Virginia, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We fully support HB 388. The presence of loved ones visiting a patient at the hospital supports recovery, reduces isolation, feelings of helplessness and hopelessness, and fear. Allowing video visitation will assist families that may have transportation concerns, health or physical needs, or limited means. Individuals that may not otherwise be able to visit their loved ones without video visitation are provided an option through this bill. NAMI Virginia, of course, asks for your support of HB 388 and that video visitation be included as an option in state hospitals. Thank you for your time and consideration. I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Harkey. Appreciate you being with us this morning.
Madam Chairman, question of the patron.
Delegate Ora.
Delegate Willett, and I'm sure you've got the same fists that I've gotten, and I suspect that what may have transpired, and tell me if I'm missing the mark, in the times they're referencing, the facilities hadn't gotten up to speed with the Zoom capability. But according to the fiscal impact statement that we've received, it says Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services has implemented a virtual visitation at all of their facilities. Is that your understanding of that FIS as well? And if you had the opportunity to talk with the department to see if that's an error or?
Madam Chair, Chairman Orrick, yes, the facilities were able to stand this program up during COVID. They're essentially right now using Kindles for the communication, so they provided it. The reason for the bill, the reason for the small appropriation, I think it's just over $8,000, is to continue that. At some point, I think there's a life cycle on the Kindle, so they want to replace them in the second year of the biennium, and this would provide for that.
Madam Chairman, I'd move to recommend reporting and referring to appropriations HB 388.
Second.
All right. Please cast your vote. This is a report and refer to appropriations, House Bill 388. Delegate Willett, your bill passes on a 5-0 vote.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Delegate Byron.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. There is a substitute available for you on House Bill 1359.
Would you explain what the substitute does? Well,
The substitute was to correct some concerns from the hospitals and physicians on some HIPAA conflicts that we needed to correct. And there was also a section that got removed from the bill that I need to work with them over the summer to find out a little bit more information about the consent area, which wasn't really the goal of what this legislation was, but something that I'm also very interested in. So, all right, so this bill is about mental health services. It's a small step, but a critical one on the road to services that people need to get. Most people here in this room have experienced a loved one or a good friend or someone they know that has mental health. Today, so many of our youth are experiencing mental health. And one of the hardest challenges, I think, with mental health is understanding that you actually need services. You don't know what's going on, but some of the biggest challenges are getting your loved one to consent to actually going to see someone and to seek kind of help. So this past year, I had an experience with a loved one of mine that was a teenager that needed to have physician services. A lot of our teenagers, while they're going through critical things, have never experienced having to deal with a doctor's office. And trying to get appointments in the midst of COVID and even without COVID is very challenging, to say the least, let alone for a young person. So what this bill will do is have the availability for individuals that are a spouse, parent, adult child, adult sibling, or other person to help make appointments for medical services on behalf of a person, to be able to attend appointments together with the person who is subject of the health record with, I think they have to have authorization for that from the individual, but then be able to help them to be able to go through those services. I know from my own past experiences for the past 30 years that sometimes just being with a person that is getting mental health services and then being able to encourage them after you leave that room that they got something of value out of it is challenging in itself. A lot of people, I shudder to think about the people that don't have support with them. But let me tell you, the support that you have with you is priceless when it comes to mental health services and being able to assist those with it. So that's the brunt of what all this bill does, and be glad to answer any questions.
Do I have a motion to move this substitute?
I move substitute.
A second? All right. All in favor of moving the substitute, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Delegate Orrock.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, question of the patron.
Yes.
Delegate Byron, but be correct, kind of the long and the short of this, it's creating a quasi-medical power of attorney in so much as they don't get the full width and breadth of those legal provisions under a power of attorney, but it allows them, presuming this is probably hopefully going to be a short-term situation, they can make appointments. If the person gives consent, they can give certain medical information, but without having the full access to the medical power of attorney provisions, this allows them, and it doesn't have to just be, that one person. It can be anyone in the family to assist and make appointments and help them to get the medical care they need. Am I correct?
That is correct. A power of attorney is very
Right.
difficult and challenging in itself.
I've got one for my sister. I know the process, yeah. Okay.
All right. Any other questions from the committee?
I move to recommend reporting.
All right. Yeah, we did. All right. Delegate Byron. Delegate Byron, your bill passes out on a 3-2 vote.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome very much. Delegate O'Quinn.
And Madam Chairman, might I suggest, I believe Delegate Hodges has a bill on this matter too, if they could kind of do a tag team on this and we'll consider them both together.
Sure.
That works.
And Madam Chairman, I'm not sure if they are identical, but they're at the very least very similar. So I have House Bill 560, and essentially what this bill does is pretty straightforward, is to allow your constituents to choose where they want to get their prescriptions filled. It creates parity between dispensing prescriptions through mail order or through your local community pharmacy. It allows a covered individual to fill their prescription at a retail pharmacy or through mail order if the retail pharmacy agrees to a comparable reimbursement, meaning that particular piece of it is not going to do anything to increase the cost of your prescriptions. It prohibits the PBMs from charging a higher copay or an additional fee for someone who chooses to go to a retail pharmacy. And it also strikes the ERISA exemption for PBM regulation. And essentially what that is that's in reference to a recently decided Supreme Court case that gives the states the green light to regulate PBMs on a state-by-state basis rather than just having that purely regulated at the federal level. So that's what my bill does. Quite frankly, I think we all know that we have community pharmacies closing all over the state. I don't know the numbers. Every year, the numbers are more and more staggering as to how many close. If you are anywhere in really anywhere in Virginia, you're going to end up, if you aren't already, with a major access issue. And that's really what I'm trying to get at with this bill. So I'll let Delegate Hodges speak to how his bill may be different.
I believe they're exactly identical to each other, yeah. Delegate Hodges.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee. I'd just like to echo what Delegate O'Quinn said regarding the legislation. Does exactly the same thing. And this is really, it's a patient bill as well. It's not only for the pharmacies, but it's patient access. And the Rutledge decision that came down from the Supreme Court, 8-0, was unprecedented. And it allows states to have more oversight on middlemen, PBMs, third-party administrators within healthcare to allow access for patients to their community pharmacies and in healthcare.
All right. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak for the bill?
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. My name is Leah Argy. I'm a pharmacist and a pharmacy owner out of Charlottesville, Virginia. And I just wanted to come and speak on behalf of my patients. We have people coming to us every day at the pharmacy who would love to get their prescriptions filled at us because we answer the phone and we're there for them when they need something. And they are told that they can't come to us by their insurance companies, or that they have to go through all of these different hoops just to try to be able to come to our pharmacy. We have patients who are somewhat fortunate in the fact that they're able to shop around and pay cash prices to come to us to be able to get their medications. But the really unfortunate thing is that there are a lot of people who cannot afford to do that, and they are forced by their insurance companies to go to other pharmacies or go to mail order, and that creates delays in them getting their prescriptions. They're not able to use the pharmacies they wish to choose, and they're delayed by days in their service.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Christina Borelli with the Virginia Pharmacists Association, and we'd like to thank Delegate O'Quinn, who's been working with us on this issue for many years now. We actually introduced a very similar bill back in 2019, and it was sent to the Joint Commission on Healthcare, and we had a very robust study. And so we started working on this issue by having the state license and regulate PBMs, and we did that back in 2020. And this is a continuation on ending the mandate of where patients fill their prescriptions. I think we can see by a number of bills that are being introduced today that patients are having to go out of their way to be able to afford their prescriptions. They're buying them off the internet. And what that is actually doing for patients is it's fragmenting their health. So you'll use GoodRx to buy your prescription one day. You won't be able to utilize your insurance to cover the cost of your prescription. And so people will be rationing care and going without. And we have another pharmacist that's on the Zoom, so I don't want to take up all the time, but I just want to say thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. Hunter Jamerson for Epic Pharmacies, representing 350 independent pharmacies across Virginia. Very appreciative to Delegate O'Quinn, Delegate Hodges for bringing this bill. Over the last decade, you've passed numerous regulations, patient access regulations in the pharmacy space. One of the reasons these bills perennially return to you, though, is because until the Rutledge decision that Delegate Hodges mentioned, you've not had the opportunity to extend those protections to self-insured health plans. And I think these bills accomplish that and are great bills. We ask that you report them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, thank you for having us this morning. Thank you for hearing this. Thanks to these two for bringing it forward. As a community pharmacy owner, this truly brings patient access and creates a level playing field between chains, independents, 340Bs, everything. So we appreciate your support.
Thank you. Is there anyone to speak for this in the queue?
Yes, Madam Chair. I have Mr. John Seymour.
Mr. Seymour. You have just about.
Good morning. Good morning. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, sir. We can.
Okay, great. As the others have already said, this is basically an access bill. I'm a pharmacist in Central Virginia, and I have 3 pharmacies. I'll give you some quick patient experiences because of the current state of affairs without the access. Pharmacy in Orange, Virginia has had patients who've been with me for more than 15 years all of a sudden have to go down to the local chain because they're the ones that also manage the PBM behind the scenes for Anthem. If they don't go, they end up having to pay $500 or more for their insulin in my pharmacy versus a simple copay that they used to be able to pay in my store before this provision within their PBM went through. Secondly, my store in Elkton over in the Shenandoah Valley has no chain pharmacy, no CVS close to it, and their round trip to get access to their medications is over 40 miles. This has also impacted me as an administrator of our small group. Anthem in 2019 added this provision into their plan, and I couldn't even fill my own employees' prescriptions in my store due to the mail order provision. Now, there is an opt-out feature that sometimes works and sometimes doesn't work, and some people can get it done and some can't. And even those that get it done, it often falls away and they're surprised at the point of sale when all of a sudden their prescriptions have gone back up to, say, the $500 level versus a $30 copay, which has been the plan prior to this. So it's really about access and choice. If you were to have an automobile accident.
I'm going to need you to kind of wrap up, please.
Thank you, I will. An example of comparison, if you were to have an accident in your car, you have choices to where to get your car repaired with any shop across the state. That's not the case with your healthcare because of this provision. Thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll move this forward.
Thank you. I think we have someone online to speak against the bill.
Yes, Madam Chair. The first speaker against is Doris Kraus-Mays.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Doris Kraus-Mays with the Virginia AFL-CIO. And we're opposed to this bill because a lot of labor and our large employers are self-insured. And because of being self-insured, they're able to negotiate prices and everything. So this lowers costs for workers and for the employer. So for those reasons, we are opposed to the bill. Thank you.
And we have someone else.
Yes, Ms. Lauren Rowley.
Ms. Rowley.
Hey, Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Lauren Rowley. I'm with the Pharmaceutical Care Management Association, representing the pharmacy benefit managers, both nationally and in your state. I'm going to speak, I think we've heard others speak about issues with the bill in terms of the employers. But on the matter of ERISA preemption, I just want to say that ERISA governs central matters of plan administration. And the decision in Rutledge was really about rate regulation, and in essence upheld the traveler's decision of 25 years ago that said that rate regulation is not a central matter of plan administration, and that a PBM is allowed to pass along increased costs to their health plan clients. But I think that this committee should look at other Supreme Court decisions, as well as Rutledge. Rutledge also reaffirmed the fundamental preemption principles of ERISA while still saying that rate regulation was not part of that. I would direct this committee to the decision of the Supreme Court in Miller that said that provider networks are central to plan design, therefore are preempted. There are also two other Supreme Court decisions that uphold ERISA preemption, and that's Gobey and Shaw. So I'll just challenge the ERISA part of the bill.
I need you to wrap up, please.
And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Another person who'd like to speak against this bill?
Madam Chair, Doug Gray on behalf of the Virginia Association of Health Plans. I wanted to make a couple of points about this bill. Virginia law has any willing pharmacy provision already. We cannot, in fully insured business, force anyone to use mail order, nor can we exclude a pharmacy if they accept the conditions and contract with us. What this is about is a rather ambitious thing. They would like to apply state insurance laws to self-insured providers. Those are large companies, and the large companies are going to oppose that. Huntington Ingalls, which is Newport News Shipbuilding, is opposed to this idea. The Northern Virginia Chamber is opposed to this idea. The Virginia bankers are opposed to this idea. Even if it were allowed under ERISA law, it would still be a bad decision to do it because it would undermine savings. A single mail order pharmacy is permitted under Virginia's code in 38.2.3407.7F. Undermining a single mail order pharmacy undermines savings for both the fully insured and the self-insured. So this is ambitious in that it tries to apply it to the self-insured and undermine an individual mail order pharmacy. Lastly, any willing pharmacy statutes would and could permit the filling of a mail order prescription at retail if we could work out the terms and conditions and have a contract. To do that would take some time and effort.
Thank you.
No one has ever approached me about working that out, but this bill is unacceptable in its current form, and that's why we oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Tran.
Madam Chairman, quick question, if I may, of Doug.
Delegate Orrock.
If we gave you a year, could you work it out?
I think we could work out one of the three issues, but two of them absolutely not. I don't think that employers are going to agree, large employers who are under ERISA, to come under state insurance laws, and we're not going to agree to undermine a single mail order pharmacy. All right. But we could work on the issue of filling a mail order prescription at retail if they accepted the terms and conditions and price. All right. Look, what this is really about is getting the people in the store. That's what it's about.
Don't make me be sorry I asked, okay?
All right, Delegate Tran.
Speaking to the bill, Madam Chair.
Yes, Delegate Tran.
I'm very sympathetic, as you can imagine, Delegate O'Quinn and Delegate Hodges. I've had lots of folks stop by to talk about this bill, trying to get me to understand the difference between how a mail order pharmacy prices are negotiated versus the bricks and mortar store. But I look at it from a consumer perspective, and I think the pharmacist who was the first witness spoke to that very well. As somebody who needs to buy medication, you want to make sure that wherever you have as much flexibility as possible in buying it, and wherever you buy it, it costs the same. It should not be different. And I know that the tides are really difficult because we're fighting our national healthcare system and the way it's already set up. But I hope, I'm hopeful, unlike the last witness, that you could come to some type of agreement, because at the end of the day, whether you want to sell additional products in a bricks and mortar store or not, we have to look at the ease and cost to the consumer, and that should be our bottom line. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I have a motion.
Delegate Orrock.
I move that we would carry over House Bill 560 and 943.
All right. So this is a voice vote, excuse me. All those in favor of carrying over these two bills, HB 560 and HB 943, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Thank you. And we'll be paying attention to this. Delegate Helmer.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Madam Chair, did you want me to start with 481?
That's fine.
All right. Madam Chair, members of the committee, before you right now is House Bill 481. It's a fairly straightforward bill. For capitalism to work, people got to know the prices that they are going to pay. What House Bill 481 does is take a really good Trump administration rule that already requires hospitals to put their prices out on their websites and tell folks what the costs of care are, particularly for things they can schedule in advance, to align state code with that federal rule. Now, I'll tell you, and you're going to hear today, that hospitals don't like this bill. In fact, they took the federal government to court to try to fight mandatory price disclosure, and they lost. Unfortunately, despite that, fewer than 20% of hospitals are compliant. So our bill does a couple of things. First one is it says, hey, you got to do what the feds have already said you got to do. You got to put your prices out there. You got to make it clear. You got to make it easy. You got to make it accessible. The second thing that it does is the feds, in their wisdom at the end, put a loophole in place. And what that loophole says is instead of taking your 300 bundled prices, those are the types of healthcare you can schedule advance and put them out, even though you got to put all your prices out there, making that easily accessible, you can use a price estimator tool. Well, the problem with that is there's no requirement that that price estimate be a good estimate or even a good faith estimate. And so this bill at the end of the day is fairly simple. It just says, hey, like anything else, we should be able to know the price of what we pay. It's very, very important because it allows you to figure out if you're an employee or an employer or a taxpayer, what the cost of care is between different facilities, and make a choice. And it'll help us ultimately control the cost of health care and increase access. Madam Chair, in front of you there is a substitute, which I've shared with most of you in advance, and the substitute just clarifies some of the definitions in the bill in the same code section to make sure that they're aligned with federal law. With that, I hope the committee will move the substitute, and I hope you'll move the bill and look forward to your questions.
Okay, it's already been done. That's okay. All those in favor of the substitute say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? All right. Delegate Helmer, you've already explained your bill. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak for the bill?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Natalie Snyder. I'm the State Advocacy Director for AARP Virginia. AARP supports efforts to ensure health care is adequate and affordable, and we feel that this bill does just that. Costs, including premiums, deductibles, and other out-of-pocket expenses, should not be burdensome to consumers or limit access to coverage or necessary services. Efforts to improve transparency, which this also does, may play an important role in improving the value of care. And while we continue to strive to make sure the burden of healthcare cost reduction should not fall primarily on the consumer, it is my request that you support this bill. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, question.
Yes, Delegate O'Rourke.
Yes, ma'am. If I understand, this is just reflective of federal requirements. Would that be accurate under your understanding?
That is my understanding, yes, sir.
Follow-up question.
Delegate O'Rourke.
So I would then presume that AARP is going to take a position of trying to get all 50 states to similarly impose state law to reflect what the feds require.
I don't know that we would take action in that direction, but if we were requested to support similar bills in other states, we would do so.
All right, Madam Chairman, final.
Delegate O'Rourke.
But if the feds require it, why?
Because there are some, as Delegate Helmer pointed out, there are loopholes that need to be fixed, and there are many, many hospitals that are not in compliance with the federal statute, and so this just kind of shores up that requirement.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak for the bill?
Morning, Madam Chair. Freddie here with the Commonwealth Institute. We generally support efforts for consumer price transparency, and this is just a continuation of federal efforts here at the state level to get consumers more accurate price estimates. Thank you.
All right. Anyone to speak against the bill?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Julie Dime with the Hospital and Healthcare Association here in Virginia. And Delegate Helmer is correct. This just does very much mirror the federal requirements, except for it actually doesn't go as far as the federal requirements do. In fact, this could create a major confusion for patients who are trying to access this information because the federal requirements are far more comprehensive. The federal transparency rules require hospitals to display this discounted cash prices, payer-specific negotiated charges, and de-identified minimum and maximum negotiated charges for at least 300 shoppable services, as he indicated. In order to comply with the federal rules, most hospitals in Virginia have instituted the use of the price estimator tool, which Delegate Helmer noted. This does provide information for more than 300 services and allows for patients to determine their potential out-of-pocket. It's a much more useful tool than having just 300 prices just listed on a website that doesn't make sense. It's actually a far more useful tool. The proposed language in 481 would not include that option for hospitals to utilize the price estimator tool, which is, again, much more consumer-friendly and informative. In addition, the final rule provides CMS the authority to monitor hospital compliance. Should CMS conclude that a hospital was not in compliance with one or more of the requirements, CMS may assess a monetary penalty, and after providing a warning notice to the hospital or after requesting corrective action plan from the hospital. CMS, as you all know, certifies hospitals, so we certainly do not mess with that, and we try to make sure that we are in compliance because that is certainly our certification and how we can function as hospitals. I'll leave it at that. We do have a link. I just want to, one more thing that Delegate Helmer noted, that as far as compliance, the bill went into effect of January 1, 2021. We did, after Delegate Helmer shared with me that he thought 96% of our hospitals were not in compliant, we went back, and I can provide you with a link to every one of our hospital systems showing that they are in compliance. So just wanted to do that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Madam Chairman, quick question,
Sure.
if may.
Delegate O'Rourke?
Neither in this legislation, and I wonder if it's in the federal language, and how often does this information have to be updated to make sure that it's, dependable, reliable? I don't see anything requiring a time frame, quarterly, annually, anything of that nature.
That's a good question, Madam Chair, Delegate O'Rourke. I can certainly get you that information from the red. I don't know it off the top of my head. I know that Delegate Helmer's bill would not require that, but I can certainly find out and dig deeper in the federal rule.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Tran.
Thank you. Madam Chair, a question for the patron? I think the last witness, Julie, spoke about the estimator tool. It sounds like, if I understood correctly, that estimator tool is optional to be used, and I think in your bill, Delegate Helmer, you chose to require a list instead of using. Could you talk a little bit more about that, please?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd answer the delegate, and I do know we have some testimony from some experts from Patients' Rights Advocates.org and others on here. The issue around the price estimator tool, and the reason we have a number of Trump administration officials who've signed on to a letter of support of this, and the reason the firefighters and DC Metro Building Trades and National Electric Contractors Association, and many others have signed on to this bill, is that there is no requirement in the federal rule that the price estimator tool is an accurate estimate or that it is even a good faith estimate. Also, oftentimes the price estimator tool requires patients to disclose personal information in order to get access to the price. And so ultimately, we're just saying, look, the federal rule gives you two options. One is price estimator tool. One is put a list of prices. If hospitals think the price estimator tool is a very valuable tool, there is nothing in this that prohibits them from using the price estimator tool. But ultimately, what it does is require them to follow the portion of the rule that says, hey, you've got to put those 300 shoppable services on your website so we can look at Hospital A, Hospital B, and employees who actually bear the cost of healthcare can make a decision.
This time I see you with maybe an answer to Delegate O'Rourke's question.
I do, actually, Madam Chair, Delegate O'Rourke. Actually, my folks in the back here says at least once annually is required in the federal rule.
Once annually, okay. There are some people in the virtual world who'd like to speak for the bill. Heather, you want to call them?
Yes, the first speaker is Miss Cynthia Fisher.
And Ms. Fisher, if you can keep your comments to about 1 minute, I'd appreciate that. You're on mute.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I am founder and chairman of patientrightsadvocate.org, and we represent consumers of healthcare, and that includes not only patients, but also employers and unions and the American worker who actually purchase both healthcare and health coverage. Over 90% of Americans surveyed in 3 national polls over 3 bipartisan presidential administrations strongly support, with over 90% of support, for knowing prices from hospitals, insurance companies, and physicians and any provider of care before they get care. And we support HB 481 and applaud this bill and ask for it to be supported into law because it simply gives what Americans want and what the federal government has put in place into law. We did the first semi-annual report last July and found at the very 6 months in, only 5.6% of the hospitals were actually in compliance with the law. We are in process of doing another report and are finding low compliance among the hospitals.
Thank
But
you,
I
Ms.
urge you
Fisher.
to know that this law will actually allow Virginians to benefit from comparative and competitive prices and unleash a marketplace in healthcare functional just like any other market, so that through consumer choice, we can choose to lower the cost of our care to get the best quality of care at the best possible prices and add more back into employee wages and our economy. This
Thank
is a
you, Ms.
big
Fisher. Appreciate your comments.
Next is Katie Talento.
Hello, thank you, Madam Chair. My name's Katie Talento. I'm a Loudoun County mom. I live and work in Leesburg. I was also President Trump's lead health advisor on the Domestic Policy Council in the White House, where we worked hard on the president's price transparency initiative. The Biden administration has similarly shown strong support for the policy as well. Unfortunately, as Cynthia mentioned, studies show that most hospitals still aren't fully complying with the rule. HB 481 does a couple things. As Delegate Helmer mentioned, it codifies the requirement for machine-readable files showing every price for every payer and plan and cash pay patients. But the bill goes further than the federal rule a little bit. The Trump rules specified that hospitals have to show consumers those 30 bundled or shoppable prices, like a knee replacement or a maternity package. But the rule unfortunately, allowed hospitals to swap out, in lieu of this transparent list, a private price estimator that requires patients to enter personal health information and obtain only their specific out-of-pocket cost for a service. This is a real price competition, and it's a clever evasion of true transparency. The estimators have 3 flaws. They work only for individual patients, not for employers or other purchasers of care who pay for most care. They also don't show patients the full price of the service, only their out-of-pocket costs, which may mask price gouging on the full price.
Ms. Talento, your
Finally,
time is up. So thank you.
you.
If you could wrap it up in 1 sentence.
I'll give you one last thing. They don't show how the patient's price compares to other prices, so it's impossible to tell if they're getting a good deal, especially valuable during open
All right.
enrollment.
Thank you very much.
Finally, Carl Schuessler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief. My name is Carl Schuessler. I'm co-founder, managing principal of Mitigate Partners, a group of independent benefit advisors across the United States. We work with employers in helping them build their benefits package. One of the centerpieces of their benefits package is health insurance. Health insurance right now, when you go out and try to receive care in a hospital or a facility, it's the only thing in America that we don't shop for and know the price for 30 days. Think about that for a minute. If you ran a construction business and you had to get your wood and your bricks and all your supplies, your hammers, your nails, your plumbing, your electrical, and you tried to build a house for Delegate Helmer. Delegate Helmer's going, how much is the house going to be? And I can't tell you until it's built. It is insane what has happened in this country. And you can't run a business without knowing the price. No business owner in America would ever buy anything without knowing the price ahead of time. And that's what employers need to be able to run a competitive business. Healthcare is driving them out of business and they're dropping coverages. There's several examples across the state of Florida that patientrightsadvocate.org, Cynthia Fisher's organization, has covered. There's a school district in Osceola County, Florida, that saves $6 million the first year and between 15 and 20 million the second year
Mr. Schuessler,
by
I need you to
doing
wrap
these things.
up, please.
Sure. And there are other examples of this. I'd encourage you to visit the website. But the bottom line is, let's make healthcare something people can shop for and know the price before they do this. And that's why we're in support of HB 481. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. All right.
Madam Chairman.
Delegate Oric.
Madam Chairman, I'm going to propose an amendment to House Bill 481 that would put a delayed effective date of July 1, 23, and an enactment clause charging the Secretary of Health with looking at the provisions of implementation of this and any recommendations towards that end by November of 22.
All right, does everyone understand the amendment that Delegate Oric has added to the bill? All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Madam Chairman, I have a motion.
Delegate Oric.
Move to recommend reporting House Bill 481 as amended.
Second.
With the amendment? Okay. The substitute as amended, okay? Please cast your vote. All right. Delegate Helmer, 481 passes out on a 5-0 vote.
Thank you.
You have a second, Bill?
I do, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I will be very brief on this one because we heard about this last week. In front of you is House Bill 484. What House Bill 484 does is resolve something that we made a bit of a mistake on last year in terms of policy. Last year, we passed a bill that made TANF accessible to students at institutions of higher education. Both sides of the aisle, we did it unanimously on both sides of the aisle. We generally think that folks ought to go to school and therefore be in a place where they're able to earn a wage and not be reliant on public benefits in the future. When we passed that bill, one thing we didn't deal with is the VIEW program. There is a requirement that if you participate in TANF, you are in the VIEW program. The problem with that is that if you're a student in a higher VIEW program is great for lots of things. It provides counseling. It helps you get your GED. The problem is it only goes for 2 years, and if you're in a 4-year college, which we support and think is great, then it actually kicks you out of the program after 2 years. You lose your TANF benefits, and essentially we're making sure you can't finish your degree. None of us thought we should do that. Last week, Chair Orrock suggested we let it go by temporarily so he could look into some more things. And with that, I'm happy to take questions on the bill, Madam Chair.
Anyone in the committee have a question? Okay, seeing no questions, anyone speak in favor of the bill? Very briefly, please.
Madam Chair, we had a lot of testimony in favor of the bill and against the bill last week.
So we don't need to hear that again? Thank you, I appreciate that.
Madam Chairman,
Actually, we had
I
none
have a
against the bill.
motion.
We just had it in favor.
Delegate Orrock.
Given there is some modest fiscal impact on this measure, I'd move to recommend reporting and refer to appropriations.
Second.
All right. House Bill 484 is before you to report and refer to appropriations. Delegate Helmer, your bill passes out on a 5-0 vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. Appreciate your time this morning.
All right. Delegate Corey.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I hope it's a good morning. I have HB 651, excuse me, which directs the Department of Medical Assistance. Oh, I am mistaken. I have a substitute. I'd like
You want
to
to explain
move this substitute.
Would you like to explain your substitute and what it does?
Yes, absolutely. As you can see by the first version of the bill, this bill directs the Department of Medical Assistance, Medical Services to work with the Department of Behavioral Health and the Department of Health to compile an annual report. Thank you. And it's consistent with the recommendations from the Virginia Board for People with Disabilities, which is required under the ADA to make a report annually and to choose at least 2 subjects to report upon. And the substitute changes which organization is the lead in order to cut down on the cost. Medical Services said that they would have to create a new database, whereas if it's the Department of Behavioral Health, they do not have to create a new database. So therefore, that organization is the lead organization in my bill, the substitute, to collect the data that will allow the Virginia Board for People with Disabilities to be able to monitor community care facilities for those who are developmentally disabled much more effectively than having each organization handle that data collecting separately. That I'm actually explaining the bill as well as the
That's fine.
substitute. Sorry about that.
All in favor of the substitute, say aye. Anyone opposed? And you've already explained the bill. Is there anyone here that wants to speak in favor of the bill? Anyone in the audience who wants to speak against the bill? Seeing no one.
Madam Chair?
And we have a couple people in the virtual world.
Okay, excuse me. Please go ahead.
Heather. I have one speaker for the bill and one with no position. For the bill is Ms. Terry Morgan.
Ms. Morgan.
Yes, hello, Madam Chair and members of the committee. This bill would give policymakers and other stakeholders the information needed to oversee key utilization and cost trends in intermediate care facilities for individuals with intellectual disabilities, as well as a better understanding of the barriers to discharge to home and community-based settings, as recommended in the board's June 2021 assessment of the topic. Oversight is necessary to ensure that the Commonwealth is serving people in the most integrated setting, appropriate to their needs and desires, as required by the Americans with Disabilities Act and enforced by the Commonwealth Settlement Agreement with the U.S. Department of Justice. Excess utilization of ICFI IDs also pose a cost to the Commonwealth because it's more expensive to serve someone in an ICFI ID than in a home and community-based setting. Currently, the Commonwealth only publishes utilization and cost data for ICFI IDs that are owned by the Commonwealth, known as training centers. However, the vast majority of ICFI IDs are not owned by the Commonwealth. House Bill 651 would fix this information gap. Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else in the virtual queue to speak, Heather?
No, Madam Chair.
All right. Anyone have any questions from the committee? Do we have a motion?
Excuse me, Madam Chair. I would just like to point out that collecting this data and sharing it across agencies will in fact cut down on the amount of time it has taken to certify the community care facilities, as well as rectify any problems that have come up in the inspection for certification. There are nearly a third of the facilities that have not gotten their certification process completed. I could read you a whole lot of other statistics, but I know you don't want to hear them.
Thank you, Delegate Corey.
Thank you.
And refer to the.
Does not have to go to appropriations.
Oh, I thought you said.
Madam Chairman, substitute motion.
Delegate Orr?
Madam Chairman, I would move that we carry over House Bill 651 and communicate to the Disability Commission the issues embodied herein, and so that they could weigh in on it over the intervening year.
All right. So there's been a motion to carry this over and refer to the Disability Commission so they can make sure we have it right. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Corey. All right, we have a couple more that have possible fiscal impacts that we need to get out. Delegate McQuinn.
Morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. There was two bills. This one, I guess, is 1106 that we're looking at now. Okay. 1106, the Produce RX bill, actually came about as a result of a study last year. And so what this does is, after the study, there was a group of probably about 20 individuals that came together after it was proposed last year to look at the opportunities and how this program could be rolled out. But the Produce RX program established and asked that the Department of Social Services to establish a program as a 3-year pilot program to incentivize consumption of qualifying fruits and vegetables by eligible individuals for whom increased consumption of that is recommended by a qualified care provider. There's also, I apologize, there's an amendment. I'm sorry, Madam Chair. That defines, give us the definition of a qualified care provider.
Need to move the amendment? Move the amendment, Madam Chair.
Is there, and
Move the amendment and
there's a second? All right, all those in favor of the amendment, say aye. Anyone opposed? All right.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
So this, again, this program will provide, again, locally and grown produce alongside with the health camp and nutritional counseling to empower patients to overcome barriers to consumption of fruits and vegetables. It will allow medical professionals in Virginia to prescribe fresh fruit and vegetables to patients experiencing diet-related chronic illnesses, such as diabetes, prediabetes, high blood pressure, and food insecurity. So the support for this will help to increase and, again, provide nutritious food consumption, that will be licensed by doctors of medicines and from various different health care providers. This program has been successful in San Francisco, North Carolina, Washington State, and Washington, D.C. Both state-run efforts and private endeavors have worked to make this succeed. The bill will impact urban communities and rural individuals across the Commonwealth. And these will be vouchers that will be given to them, allowing them to access fruits and vegetables through local markets and provide economic growth for them. But I think that at this time, more than anything, we're at a time that we are faced with a serious crisis in terms of food consumption, I guess, just because of inflation and the cost of food. And so for many of these individuals, fruits and vegetables would not be on their priority list. And this will be helpful, particularly for the elderly and those who are certainly low income. So, Madam Chair, this is the presentation at this time, and there we have individual who have come to speak. Hopefully she's here, who was a part of that work group to speak to the issue.
All right. Anybody have questions of Delegate McQuinn? All right. Is there anybody in the audience who wants to speak for the bill? Anyone? Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and the subcommittee. I'm Nicole Westcott Hayes. I represent the American Heart Association and the Virginia Food Access Coalition. As an organization dedicated to the heart health of all Americans, AHA supports policies that promote and incentivize healthy living and eating. The Produce RX program creates a means by which those of us who may have the least can still be afforded to eat a healthy diet as prescribed by their physician. A number of states in the District of Columbia have already implemented programs such as this and have proven to improve blood pressure, reduce A1C levels in diabetics, decrease food insecurity, and improve overall health management. States and localities with these programs have also reported reductions in Medicaid and Medicare costs over the lifetime of the individual. Washington, D.C. started a pilot with about 650 Medicaid recipients who were diagnosed with hypertension, diabetes, and prediabetes, and in which the recipients received $20 weekly to spend on specific produce items. Here in Virginia, we've had two small privately run programs in Richmond and Charlottesville, which have both seen some of the same successes, however, just on a smaller scale because they were smaller programs. There are economic benefits to our smaller farmers, markets, and retailers. In those areas that have such programs, at least 40% of the participants redeem their vouchers at a local farmer's market.
Ma'am, you need to wrap up.
Yep. Finally, in addition to the American Heart Association, members of the Virginia Food Access Coalition are in support of the pilot program in Virginia and hope that it will be the will of the subcommittee.
Appreciate that.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Lauren Schmidt on behalf of the Virginia chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics, and we support the bill. Thank you.
Morning, Madam Chair. Clark Barron with the Medical Society of Virginia. We support the bill.
Doug Gray on behalf of the health plans. We support it as well.
Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak against the bill? All right, we have a few people in the virtual world.
I have two. The first is Miss Chloe Edwards.
Ms. Edwards, just try to keep your comments to a minute.
Chloe Edwards with Voices for Virginia's Children, also representing the Virginia Food Access Coalition, which is also led by Voices for Virginia's Children. In Virginia, we know that 1 in 11 people experience hunger, 1 in 9 children experience hunger, and 9.4% of the people in Virginia face food insecurity. The only thing I will add is that over 500,000 Virginians eligible for SNAP, TANF, and Medicaid that may have specific dietary needs could also be eligible for this program. We know the program will benefit farmers and low-income consumers with chronic disease, both of which have been impacted disparately by COVID. For that purpose, we hope it pleases the committee to move this bill forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. All right.
Lastly is Leslie McFadder.
Ms. McFadder.
Hi, thank you. I'm Leslie McFadder with the Virginia Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and we also support this legislation. We were part of the work group, and we find this to be helpful as we work to prevent disease progression with improving the overall nutrition of our adults and our children in the Commonwealth. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, question of the patron.
Yes.
Delegate O'Rourke.
Delegate McQuinn, from a nuts and bolts perspective, as I look at eligible individual and such, they would basically be given a prescription. What will ensure that the monies they are given are utilized to the purpose of the legislation?
Well, the prescription that will be given to them is for certain things, and so I mean they are not. And where's
and I guess maybe where the belt, the guardrails to make sure that the monies they're given are going to be utilized for purchasing the produce that they've been prescribed.
Nicole, did you want to speak? I mean, I can.
So the vouchers that are given, excuse me, the vouchers that are given are set up specifically to go to a certain set of vendors. So let's say if it's here in Richmond, there'll be a certain list of vendors that they can use these specific vouchers, and they can only use them for the produce that is for produce products. They can't use them, and it's not an additional money to their regular food stamp allotment. This is specifically just for produce, and it can only be used at certain vendors.
Delegate McQuinn, I have a question.
Yes.
So your RX program is a 3-year pilot program in every region of the Commonwealth. So you're opening this up statewide to everybody in a pilot program. Is that correct?
Yes. The program will be eligible individuals will be able to throughout the state their doctors or medical professionals will be able to provide. But there is a budget amendment as well, and so it only goes for a certain amount. Again, remembering that this is a 3-year pilot, and it gives us data, an opportunity to assess it, and to see its success, whether health outcomes or economically how people are affected by those who are selling produce, health outcomes, the individuals who get these vouchers, and just having this work group, again, folks to be able to look at it and see the success of the program. And it has been successful, very successful in other places.
Thank you. Delegate Tran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to, for the patron, I was just going to highlight that I think that there has been data showing this is an effective intervention in other communities, and I just really appreciate the work you've done to address food deserts and making sure that our low-income families have access to healthy food. And I have a motion when the time is appropriate, Madam Chair.
Delegate Tran.
Thank you. I would move that we report and refer to appropriations.
Second.
As amended?
Substitute
The
motion.
substitute, I mean.
I move that we report and refer the substitute to appropriations.
Second.
Substitute motion.
Delegate Orrock.
Lay on the table.
Well, that is a more superior motion to lay this on the table. Delegate Quinn, I would say to you to keep working at this, and it definitely is. It took you a lot of years to get the food deserts taken care of, so keep at this as well.
Okay, all
please.
right, thank you.
So
Thank you, Madam Chair.
the motion to lay on the
committee.
table is a recorded vote. And this fails at a 3-2 vote. 4-2, pardon me. We have another bill that needs to go upstairs if we report it out. Oh, yes. If she has a second bill, please.
Delegate McQuinn, you had a second?
You have 11:05?
Yes, okay, it was my understanding we were just going to, lay it on the Senate bill, a companion bill is going to a study. And so it was my understanding that was going to be given, this one was going to be given consideration for that as well.
Right, and Madam Chair, if I could, and Delegate McQuinn, I think what I would recommend is that we would carry this bill over under Rule 22 and then request a letter from the chairman to Department of Health Professions on this issue. Would you like to speak to this bill briefly, or because I don't know if they've explained or if we need to do that, or Madam Chair, or I don't want to usurp
McQuinn
authority.
wants to speak to the bill, or?
Yeah, I can briefly. Thank you, Madam Chair. So House Bill 1105 is an unconscious bias training license, creates an unbiased training license criteria for the Virginia Board of Medicine. And it is that particular bill just wanted to look at helping to, again, establish a period or some time for those who are health professionals to look at their training as eligible health professionals. This would be, again, the bill aimed to move a situation, I guess, in terms of biases, helping people to understand whether, and it is, for the most part, people, if they're biased, a lot of times they don't even realize it. And I think this bill would, again, bring this to the center and front, this whole issue, and then provide opportunities for them to better understand through a continual education training, and through the health agencies and medical board, help them to just look at themselves and deal with it the issue of unconscious biases.
Thank you, Delegate McQuinn, for explaining that. Delegate Head.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. You will see that I am very pleased to be chief co-patron of this bill. This is an issue that came to my attention over the last year with seeing some studies that I was given access to and reports. The concern that I have with this is that when you really examine everything with health outcomes, you're looking at just completely different outcome levels and much lower levels of successful outcomes in every area of healthcare, and it cuts across every socioeconomic, educational barrier that you possibly can think of. The only continuing, when the studies show us that the only common denominator is race, and to the level that when it's addressed and talked about, it is a complete ignorance that there's anything going on. The people that are seeing this are dumbfounded that there is a difference in the way that they are behaving, and so we are needing to do that. So I'm really glad that we're going to be able to work forward on this. I know we talked with Dr. Brown yesterday. The nice thing about delaying is that the licensure for physicians this year we couldn't affect, and it's an every 2-year process. So I think Dr. Brown has agreed that he will be working with us on getting this language right and making sure. So, Madam Chair, I would, if it has not been put in the form of a motion, that we carry this over under Rule 22 with a letter to the Department of Health Professions. So.
Second.
All right, we're going to carry your bill over, kind of at your request.
Yes, thank you.
All those in favor of carrying the bill forward, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you.
And thank you, Madam Chair. I was stumbling a little bit about this because I thought this had already been taken care of, and so I apologize. Thank you.
All right. We have 2 more bills we need to hear that will need to go to full today, so they have we have a note that they need to go to appropriations. Delegate Lopez, can you do your House Bill 878?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I also have a bill I need to strike. It's 878. I have 2 bills, 877, 878. 87. I was under the impression I was going to strike that bill. I thought that I had spoken to the.
Delegate Lopez, you want to do your House Bill 877 then?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, this bill is basically a clean repeal of the sections of the Virginia Code that bar undocumented Virginians from access to public assistance programs not accepted by the federal government. The justification is often made that immigrants will use those public benefits more than native-born citizens, and that therefore their use of public benefits will have a net negative impact on the economy. Both of these arguments are simply untrue. The Bipartisan Policy Institute and the Cato Institute have both concluded that immigrants do not use public benefits at a higher rate than others. In fact, the Bipartisan Policy Institute says that most research into immigrants' benefits usage finds that individual immigrants not use public benefits at lower rates and at lower levels than native-born American citizens. Recent data from the American Immigration Council tells us that undocumented immigrants in Virginia paid an estimated $441.3 million in federal taxes and $260.5 million in state and local taxes in 2018 alone. All Americans who contribute to our society, who should be able to access the same public assistance as anyone else, especially if those individuals have been paying into the system through those taxes. According to the Cato Institute, the cost of granting undocumented Americans full access to public assistance programs that they already pay into would, with regard to the government, have a very small net fiscal impact clustered around 0. That same Cato Institute report also asserted that the overall economic impact of immigrants in our society is overwhelmingly positive. The best example, Madam Chair and members of the committee, is the COVID-19 pandemic. The virus did not care if someone was documented or undocumented. They needed access to testing and vaccines. These are folks who are living all across the Commonwealth. And so the idea that we have language in our code that says that certain non-citizens are not eligible for any public benefits, especially during something like the COVID-19 pandemic, is sort of absurd. So that's why this bill is here, and I hope it's your pleasure to pass it.
All right, is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak for the bill? Anyone in the audience who wants to speak against the bill? We have someone in the virtual queue.
I have Miss Cindy Olson to speak against the bill.
All right, Ms. Olson.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Cindy Olson. I work with the Department of Medical Assistance Services, and DMAS does oppose the bill. Even if these sections of the code are repealed, the language to verify immigration status remains in federal regulations, and we would still need to follow those federal regulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. All right. I see no one else to speak. Delegate Tran.
Thank you. A question for the patron. We just heard a DMAS say that they would still have to follow federal regulations around ascertaining immigration status. Your bill does not preclude that, correct, Delegate Lopez?
That's correct.
Madam Chairman, I have a motion.
Delegate Orrock.
I move lay House Bill 877 on the table.
Second.
All right. This is a recorded vote.
Do I get to speak to that? Oh, I guess I don't.
All right, Delegate Lopez, the bill fails on a 4-2 vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll have to keep coming back and doing this until it passes. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. We have one more bill, and usually I would take you all in the audience first, but Delegate Tran has a bill that may have to go to appropriations. So I'd like for you to go ahead and present your bill.
Great, thank you. Do you want me to do it here, or do you want me to go up front?
Whichever you're most comfortable with.
Okay, I will just, since I'm sitting here. I have House Bill 1012 in front of you today.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Thank you. This bill expands healthcare by creating a comprehensive healthcare coverage program that would be available to low-income children, regardless of their immigration status, here in Virginia. It's based on the recommendations from the Secretary of Health and Human Resources Work Group, and that came out earlier this fall. The benefits of the program would be the same as Medicaid FAMIS, and it would include preventative care services, medical services, behavioral health, and dental care. Currently, about 1 in 10 uninsured children in Virginia would be eligible for healthcare coverage from this program. That's an estimate from the Commonwealth Institute, would cover about 13,000 children in Virginia. And just want to be clear, these are children who are undocumented. They could also be children who have come recently from Afghanistan, who are humanitarian parolees, whose coverage will end at some point through regular Medicaid, and so they would then be eligible for this program. Gives you a sense of who this would affect. The idea that the state would provide health care benefits for children regardless of their immigration status is not a new one in this country. Currently, 10 states and the District of Columbia have a similar program, and so I hope that we would be able to pass this bill today, and I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Is there anyone to speak in favor of Delegate Tran's bill? And if you're here to speak against the bill, you can go ahead and line up too, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. Freddie Mejia with the Commonwealth Institute and the Healthcare for All Virginians Coalition. I'm here on behalf of 60 organizations that have signed on the support of HB 1012. We believe that every child in Virginia should have access to affordable and comprehensive healthcare coverage, and this bill gets us closer to that goal. So we just please ask that you support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair. My name is Christian Martinez. I'm an advocacy specialist for CASA. We serve 10,000 immigrants, Latinos, and working class Virginians, and our community members support this bill, and we support this bill. So please vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Sarah Cariano with the Virginia Poverty Law Center. In line with the comments already made, we believe health coverage for children is incredibly important. Preventative services help them grow up to be healthy adults, and we ask that you consider this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Kim Bobo, a director of the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy. We too support this bill, and thank you, Patron, for bringing it.
Thank you. No one to speak against the bill in the crowd, but we have some folks in the virtual world. Heather, you want to bring them forward?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have 4 speakers for the bill. The first is Dr. Megan Pryor.
Good morning, Madam Chair. I'm Megan Pryor, and I'm a pediatrician speaking this morning on behalf of the Virginia chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics in support of HB 1012. I currently see the kids in Virginia who lack health insurance because they were born somewhere else. A family of one of my 6-year-old patients imports multiple seizure medications from South America because those meds cost $3,000 a month here, and they fear for the day that she runs out. A 4-year-old patient has a hand deformity that won't allow him to write or to catch a ball. He saw a surgeon through a charity care program, but the surgery itself is not covered. I see a 5-year-old who started to go blind when he was 3. I got him in to see a specialist, and they believe his blindness could be reversible, but the subspecialist he now needs is not covered under a charity plan. I see simple problems too: kids with headaches who need glasses, kids with cavities who need dentists, kids with fractures who need x-rays, and even these basics are out of reach for people who need to pay out of pocket. Children end up needing costly emergency room care when problems turn dire. I appreciate your time, and I urge you to support healthcare coverage for all the kids in Virginia with HB 1012.
Thank you, Dr. Pryor.
Next is Katie Zhang.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Katie Zhang, and I'm with the Hamke Center. We organize Asian Americans across the Commonwealth. I just wanted to say that we support this bill, and I ask you to please support it.
Thank you.
Next is Monica Sarmiento.
Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Monica Sarmiento. I'm the Executive Director of the Virginia Coalition for Immigrant Rights. On behalf of our 45-member organization coalition, we urge you to report this bill and pass it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, Chloe Edwards.
Good morning, Chloe Edwards with Voices for Virginia's Children. Virginia ranks 25th in the nation for the percentage of children who do not have access to health insurance. However, children with undocumented status in the state are estimated to have an uninsured rate of 48%. We believe that every child should have access to the ability to lead long, healthy, successful lives, and Virginia must do better for the future, which is our children. This is also a priority supported by the Racial Truth and Reconciliation Virginia Coalition with over 2,000 members as well. We hope you will join us in solidarity and please support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Tran, do you want the last word on your bill?
Thank you. Madam Chair, I would just say that we've all seen the high costs when we have uninsured individuals in our community if they have to access emergency care or urgent care. And I think that this helps to reduce those costs, but also it helps to make sure that all of our children, regardless of their immigration status, are able to see a doctor and get the services they need to be healthy, be able to focus in school and grow up. And so I hope that we are able to pass this bill today out of subcommittee. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Tran.
Madam Chair,
Delegate Hayes,
the appropriate time, Madam Chair, I'd like to move.
now's the time.
All right. Madam Chair, I move that we report the bill
And refer.
and refer.
Madam Chair, substitute motion. Move to lay on the table.
All right. So this is a recorded vote. And the bill will be laid on the table on a 3-3.
No.
Oh.
Fail.
Motion fails. So we go now to the underlying motion to report and refer. Technical difficulties. Okay, here we are. And the bill fails to report and refer on a 3 vote. All right, so that takes care of all the bills that may have to go to full committee before they go upstairs to appropriations. Delegate Guzman, I think you've been here a long time.
Good morning, Madam Chair. House Bill 1098, I have a substitute for your consideration.
Do you want to speak to the substitute
Sure.
and what it does differently, Delegate Guzman?
Sure, Madam Chair. The substitute language changes the bill into a Section 1 bill that would direct DEMAS to convene a work group with applicable stakeholders to study and provide recommendations related to the payment of medical assistance for obesity prevention and other obesity-related services.
Excuse me, Delegate Guzman. I
Sure.
have a bill up that I have to go, so I'm going to turn the gavel over to Delegate Head.
And a little bit of adjustment here. So I guess we need to move the substitute.
So moved.
And second, all right, so substitute, all in favor, aye? Aye. Okay, substitutes before us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the subcommittee, this covering obesity prevention is not new to many states throughout the Commonwealth. We have states like Arizona, Colorado, the District of Columbia, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Louisiana that are already covering this through Medicaid. However, in the Commonwealth, what we have decided to do is to convene, direct DEMAS to convene a work group to address this critical issue. Right now, our youth 10 to 17, the rates are increasing for individuals who are suffering from obesity. This is not an issue that is unique to one race. Actually, we have from different races, white, African Americans, Hispanics, to suffer from this issue starting at young age. So this bill is trying to just convene this work group to see the possibility to cover this through Medicaid, so we can start a conversation and enable the Commonwealth to better position the fight to obesity epidemic our nation and Virginia currently faces. The work group will include the Department of Medical Assistance, the Virginia Foundation for Healthy Youth, the Medical Society of Virginia, the Virginia Academy of Nutrition and Diabetics, the American Health Association, the American Diabetes Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Virginia Nurses Association, the Virginia Hospital and Healthcare Association, and other appropriate stakeholders. I want to thank you for your consideration. I have multiple stakeholders that have provided the support for this bill. We have letters, but if they are not here today, I can name them, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Delegate. And just for clarity, my appearance is not what provoked you to bring this legislation. And, yeah, okay, all right, so just wanted to, we gain weight during session, okay? We have several people here to speak to the bill. See, I think we have Dr. Clara Thompson. Ms. Thompson? Dr. Thompson, you with us?
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, welcome.
All right. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. I'm Clara. I'm a pediatric resident physician at Inova Children's Hospital. I'm speaking on behalf of the Virginia chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics in support of House Bill 1098. Childhood obesity is recognized as a public health priority right now. There are numerous medical, psychosocial complications of childhood obesity, as well as the financial burden on current and future healthcare costs. What we do to take care of our children right now definitely impacts the kind of adult population we're going to be taking care of. So primary prevention of obesity is recognized as a critical part of a sustainable solution to this problem. I go several days in clinic where I counsel patients as young as 8 about nutrition and how they can have the mindset to take care of their health, to prevent the complications of obesity. And I truly believe when we come together across disciplines to come up with solutions, I believe that HB 1098 will give us that opportunity to think about what we can do to increase our prevention efforts for obesity in children and our future adult population. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Doctor. And we also have now Ms. Leslie McFadder. And again, we need to keep these brief as we can.
Hi, I'm Leslie McFadder with the Virginia Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and I echo everything Dr. Thompson just said. This study is vitally important as we continue to focus on prevention rather than treating chronic illness and spending our money on taking care of people and before they get sick. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And folks in the audience to speak in favor of the bill.
Kelsey Wilkinson, Medical Society of Virginia. We support the bill and thank the patron.
My name is Rachel Becker with the Virginia Hospital and Healthcare Association. We support this bill.
Mr. Chairman.
Delegate O'Rourke.
I think the patron has pulled a rabbit out of the hat, and I'd move to recommend reporting as substitute.
Second.
I have a motion and second to report the substitute. Everybody please vote on the board. And motion to report passes the vote of 5-0. Thank you, Delegate Guzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee.
All right. All right. So let's see. I think Delegate Van Valkenburg, you have a bill, and Delegate Delaney. I'm trying not to get out of order. I'm trying to get because I was late to the meeting here from another meeting. Then I'm making sure that I know what all we have covered and what we haven't. So that may take me just a moment. But Delegate Van Valkenburg, would you like to go ahead and start with us?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, House Bill 1211 is about the Opioid Abatement Authority and would expand the board to include more individuals representing the addiction and recovery community. So this was created last year. This was created as an independent body last year, and the idea is to abate and remediate the opioid epidemic in Virginia through the Opioid Abatement Fund. All the funds are from the Attorney General's settlements and judgments and verdicts and other court cases are coming here, plus any other gifts, grants, bequests, or anything like that. Currently, the board is composed of 11 members, and only one comes from the addiction and recovery community. And this bill would bump that up to 15 members, and you'd have 5 members, or a third of the board, composed of individuals representing the addiction and recovery community. There is some precedents for this. If you look at the Community Services Board, where 1/3 of the appointments to the board shall be individuals who are receiving or who have received services. I think really what we have right now is a board that the recovery community doesn't really have much of a voice on, with only 1 voting member out of 11, and this would ensure that they have a little bit more of a say when this board is, putting out its grants and carrying out its mission. And I think their voice is important. The locals would still have majority. I know they don't like it, but they would still have a majority voice. And so that is the bill. There's a couple people here to testify. I'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
All right. Thank you, Delegate Van Valkenburg. Questions from the committee? And do we have anybody online to speak in favor of the bill or in support of their or in opposition? Okay, no one online. So people in the audience to speak in favor of the legislation.
Mr. Chair, thank you, members of the committee, subcommittee. My name is Nathan Mitchell, and I'm here in Richmond, Virginia. I am also a person in sustained recovery from a substance use disorder and a peer recovery specialist working on the front line of the opioid crisis every day. I'm also the outreach director with the McShin Recovery Resource Foundation and a state organizer with the Virginia Recovery Advocacy Project, a diverse grassroots network supporting community and public policy-based solutions in response to America's long-standing addiction crisis. I won't repeat some of the things that Delegate Van Valkenburg has so eloquently already said, but I will state that this comes from meetings that I have been in where we've been with people who are distributing money and where people who are not having their voices heard, are often talking about putting up billboards and hotlines, when what we really need are detox centers and beds for recovery. And I'm not saying we don't need the billboards and the hotlines, but we need a combination of these two, which is why it's so important to ensure that we have voices of lived experience on the board. So, as I said, the Opioid Abatement Authority was created to serve Virginians most impacted by the opioid crisis, and individuals directly impacted have a unique understanding of the crisis. This bill recognizes and values that unique perspective. I'm asking you to please support HB 1211 and refer onward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else to speak in favor of the bill? Anyone here to speak in opposition to the bill? All right. Delegate Van Valkenburg, last word.
Yeah, I think Nathan summed it up really well. This is just about making sure that we are getting a holistic approach to this really big problem in Virginia, and these recovery groups do God's work and are really important in Virginia, and I think they need to have a more robust voice when we're talking about how to abate the opioid epidemic.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, the committee operates by motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move lay on the table.
Have a motion to lay on the table and a second. That is a non-debatable motion. And the motion to lay on the table passes by a vote of 3-2. So,
thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you, Delegate Van Valkenburg. Delegate Delaney, House Bill 1329.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, this bill amends some language that we included in our code in 2020 in my House Bill 808 from that year. We just needed to make kind of a technical correction to ensure that we're including the ages of 13 to 18-year-olds in our definition of pediatrics for the matter of pediatric sexual assault survivor services for forensic nursing. And so this bill clarifies the language, expands to include 13 to 18-year-olds to ensure the provisions outlined in my 2020 bill that will apply to provide the same access of care to those children. And additionally, this bill adds one member to the task force on services for survivors of sexual assault that represents a forensic clinic.
All right, thank you, Delegate Van Valkenburg. Questions for the patron? Anyone here to speak in favor of the bill? Anyone in opposition? All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Warrock.
Move to recommend reporting.
Second.
I have a motion to report and properly seconded. Let's vote on the board. And House Bill 1329 reports and a vote of 4-0. Thank you, Delegate Delaney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee.
All right. Let's see. All right, Delegate Hope, you are here, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the subcommittee, House Bill 1193. Mr. Chairman, House Bill 1193 directs DMAST and to form a work group with DBHDS to work on and study coordinated specialty care program. Research has shown that the coordinated specialty care program has helped people in early psychosis to manage their disease. It's really their onset of psychosis to help them manage their disease, provide education and support to caregivers, and improves the quality of life, which will lead to better outcomes. This is already being used in the Commonwealth of Virginia. 11 CSBs are pilot programs in this area. Already in our budget, there's $4 million in our budget. We also get federal grants as well, close to $2 million every single year for coordinated specialty care. But the purpose of the work group, and this builds off a report that came out from the Department of Behavioral Health that was just published in December. They're requesting that continued work or study go into this effort, and this work group that's before you just continues that. It would bring in other stakeholders that will monitor what we're seeing out there. It would It would bring in other stakeholders like private payers as well too, to take a look at this, evaluate what the reimbursement levels ought to be so that this can end up going to a statewide program. Again, there are federal dollars out there for this, and this is shown to be a remarkable first step. And so this really just builds upon what the work group has recommended in going forward.
All right. Delegate Hope, anyone here to speak in favor of the bill or questions for the patron, I guess I should ask first? Anyone speaking in opposition?
Move to recommend reporting.
Motion and second to recommend reporting House Bill 1193. Everyone please vote on the board. And House Bill 1193 reports on a vote of 5-0. Thank you, Delegate Hope.
Mr. Chair.
Delegate Clark, you were hidden behind my chair, so I'm sorry. You've been there for a long time. I apologize. Please welcome, and
No
you have
worries,
House Bill
Mr. Chair.
538.
Thank you. Good morning to members of the committee. I do have an amendment in the nature of a substitute.
That'll work.
And I have copies of the substitute if you need it.
Mr. Chair, I apologize to you and the patron. I forgot to make copies of the substitute, but it is short, so I can read it to you if you would like.
I have copies as well.
Okay, we can hand those out. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, as it's being distributed, could Delegate Clark tell us, given the action we took on Delegate McQuinn's bill, which to me this looks like kind of a subset of that, explain how this would differ from Delegate McQuinn's implicit bias training that we asked Department of Health professions to look at?
Yes, I think the difference between the two bills that Delegate McQuinn had would be for overall healthcare implicit bias. This is just around prenatal care. And this will be to convene a work group to develop guidelines regarding implicit bias training for certain healthcare providers, but it will be pertaining to prenatal care.
Okay. Have a motion on the substitute. Is there a second? And all in favor say aye. Aye. All right. Substitute is before us. Again, and Doug Clark, I think we have heard this. Again, this is very much a subset. So I think this issue, irrespective of the action we may take on this particular legislation, this is going to get looked at very heavily from both House and Senate, is from what I'm hearing on this. So this is an important issue for us to look at.
Yes.
Any questions for the patron? Or, we have somebody to be heard virtually?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have 2 people signed up to speak for the bill.
Very good. We have, let's see, we have Ms. Angela Antoine. Ms. Antoine, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Good morning. Welcome to the
I'm
committee.
sorry. Yes, thank you so much. My name is Antoine, and I am the founder and director of House of Dreams Reentry Services out of Hampton, Virginia. And I support this bill because of the fact that I help women that are transitioning. They may have substance abuse problems, and they may have children or go in pregnant to institutions and come out and have kids, and have babies at the hospital, and there's no action plan once they come home. They're just taken out. They just get their discharge papers, and that's it. I read through some of the bills. I read through Bill 54.1-2403.1, where it says that if a woman comes into the hospital with substance abuse problems and may have and suffer from postpartum, the hospital is supposed to notify the CSB board so they can begin to set up a treatment plan. That does not happen. I have a lot of women where they are not set up with these plans
And
when
we
they
need
go.
you to wrap up, Ms. Antoine. So.
Okay, no problem. So I support this bill due to the fact that my sister was one of those women that had substance abuse problems and went suffered postpartum depression, and she ended up getting killed because and she suffered from mental health issues, and she didn't get the help that she needed. So this bill is very much needed. And again, I do support this bill and that Delegate
All right,
Sedaris
thank you, Ms. Antoine. And next up, we have Ms. Chloe Edwards. Ms. Edwards?
Morning, Chloe Edwards with Voices for Virginia's Children. Our mission is to champion public policies to improve the lives of Virginia's children. We're supportive of this bill. Virginia has increasingly made progress over the last few years in increasing access to prenatal care, such as FAMIS, et cetera. This is the bill that would just simply continue to enhance the progress we've made. We know that Black women are most likely to die during childbirth, as well as non-white women, as well as women in rural localities. So this is unconscious bias is something that will improve increased outcomes for all women. For that purpose, we hope it pleases the committee to continue on to report this bill.
All right, thank you, Ms. Edwards. Anyone in the audience to speak in favor or in opposition to the bill? We have folks coming.
Mr. Chairman, Nicole Pugar-Lauder, on behalf of the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, just want to thank the patron for working with us. We look forward to be part of the work group, and thank you all.
Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Rorach.
Come on back.
Oh, yes, sir.
Would not we be able to achieve the same objective if it was just included with Dr. Brown's earlier action we did on? Okay.
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
we would support that.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Brent Rawlings, Virginia Hospital Healthcare Association. I appreciate Delegate Clark. We have been having conversations with him. I don't know the direction this is going, but the one concern, we had was this was sort of directed at hospitals and perinatal care, which is missing the pre and post action. And are we capturing all the right providers? So I think, we would be supportive of an approach that, looks at this as part of that DHP study. It should be handled by the professions and not by the hospitals. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Delegate Clark, I'm gonna give you an option here. We can either, likewise to the action we took with Delegate McQuinn, carry yours over under Rule 22 if you would choose, or we can simply table this legislation knowing it's going to get looked at. I'll give you the option.
However the will of the body pleases to carry the bill, either way works for me.
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion.
All right, Delegate Rorach.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we carry over House Bill 538 with a letter to DHP to look at this as they're looking at the other medical professionals.
Okay, do you have a second? All right, and all in favor say aye. 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 All right, that bill is carried over.
Thank you.
Until next year. Thank you, Delegate Clark. I think the last bill is Delegate Robinson's that we have this morning.
Can I present from here, sir?
Absolutely.
And this is substitute or amendment? Substitute, okay. So, Mr. Chairman, on House Bill 933, this has to do with some cleanup and things under the pharmaceutical processors bill that we passed last year. But there are some amendments and a substitute.
All right, so we would take a motion on the substitute.
So moved.
Is there a second? All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, substitute is before us.
And normally I would speak to the substitute first, but some of the changes I just got very early this morning. So what I would like to ask is if this can go by temporarily until the meeting this evening.
All right, we have a motion for this to go by. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, very, very good. So we will take this up later this evening.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Delegate Rorach.
Mr. Chairman, I think, and staff correct me, I believe we have two other measures on our docket, HB 931 and 937. I would move that they go by for the day.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, those, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? All right, those bills are by for the day, and I believe that completes our morning docket. So thank you. We will see you this evening, and the committee will rise.